Hello everyone, this is Kevin T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net, and let's talk about Dragon Ball in general, because there was an article on Anime News Network, and as you can see, we're doing this podcast style, so for those of you who want to listen on the car, you can just listen on the car. For those of you who are watching, well, there's a screenshot for you, as you can clearly see. This comes from Anime News Network, of course, and the title of the article was Lascivious Master Roshi suspected target in latest BPO published complaint, and I'm sure I messed that first word up somehow. And the article reads, Master Roshi's unwavering eye for the female form has landed him in hot water in a recent complaint published by watchdog group Japan's Broadcasting Ethic and Program Involvement Organization. For those who are unaware, the BPO is essentially the Japanese version of the Parents Television Council, and for those who don't know who that is in America, chances are you don't watch Family Guy, otherwise you would be very familiar with them. And they basically watch these shows, and they make complaints on behalf of other parents to the networks and complain about content in shows. Most of the time, these type of companies will complain about shows that aren't necessarily... Here's the thing about these. Because, like, the Parents Television Council is normally listing Family Guy as the worst of the week. Almost routinely. Other shows that they have include Seventh Heaven and Everwood. And when you have shows like Law & Order and Game of Thrones on the air, of course these are not the most inappropriate shows for families to be watching, but they approach them because they give off an air of being family-friendly. And Dragon Ball has long been known, especially in America, to be a family property. Actually, in Japan, it's a family property. In America, it's more of a children's property, thanks to the prevalence of it being on Cartoon Network's Toonami for so many years, and teenage boys largely watching it. But there is an element of Dragon Ball that is not so family-friendly, and here's the thing. In America, most parents have been able to avoid it because any references of inappropriate sexual humor and bad language was edited out, and extreme violence was toned down quite a bit. In fact, they went so above and beyond the editing that even music was changed, which I didn't find to be offensive at all, but, you know, whatever. Well, if you grew up watching the edited Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z episodes, there is an aspect of the show you might not be aware is there, even though hardcore, not even hardcore, but adult Dragon Ball fans who watch the show uncut on DVD, usually subtitled, this is actually very common knowledge. And that is the fact that Master Roshi, the teacher of Goku and Krillin, is actually kind of a pervert. Like, he's a real honest-to-God pervert. In fact, full confession here, Master Roshi was the first pervert I was exposed to in a cartoon, maybe even a show in general. I had never thought that there would be really old people who just ogled women and touched them inappropriately, and it was a little bit of a shock, and it was interesting because even at a young age, and I'm no social justice warrior, I'm fairly moderate, it was, you know, against what my parents raised me to not only do this, but the show presented it in a humorous way. Now, of course, it might have been offset a little bit, and why I ultimately was okay with it in the long run, because Master Roshi rarely got away with it. Also, it was really funny during certain times to see just how far he was willing to go to impress a girl, that he would, like, do things like wear, you know, women's dresses and stuff that were just as scantily clad as what the women were dressing. But hey, he's wearing it too, so it's alright, right? And, you know, you almost have to admire his determination in his pervertedness. And the interesting thing about the situation is, for many years in Japan, this was common knowledge that during Dragon Ball, families would watch this with their kids and they wouldn't raise an issue or a fuss or anything. It should also be noted that the series premiered in the 80s, and as the show went on, and that is my phone, I'm sorry about that, basically the standards changed a little as the show went on. And as the show went on, Master Roshi's pervertedness became less and less of a story element, most likely because he wasn't in it as much as he used to be. But with Dragon Ball Super, Akira Toriyama is basically bringing the show back to its roots. He's bringing it back to some of the more lighthearted adventure comedy, storytelling. There's less focus on action, and many older characters who had been sidelined as we got through dozens and dozens of episodes of Saiyans powering up. Well, they're coming back and they're being featured again, and that includes Master Roshi. And a character trait of Master Roshi is that he is a dirty old man and he is a pervert. Well, here's the other thing. Japan's standards for what's acceptable in family entertainment has definitely been tightened a little bit, and this is even evident in Dragon Ball Kai, whereas back when Dragon Ball premiered, you could show a little 5-year-old naked Goku walking around with his wiener hanging out, and if you watch the Kai episodes or anything that animates older stories of the Dragon Ball story, all those images are of little wiener Goku are covered up, like you can't see his wiener. So I'm not saying that I necessarily want to see Goku's wiener, only that, guess what, one time you could show that on Japanese TV, now you can't. Now, I don't know what the standards for an old man groping young women are, but obviously, at least socially, that's being frowned upon more and more. Because a complaint was to the TV station from the BPO, and it reads as follows. In an animation program, there are scenes of an older man touching young girls' bodies and peeping at their underwear against their will. These scenes are almost irrelevant to the story. I love watching this show with my child every weekend, but it's also inappropriate for children to see this in an anime. And like most complaints that the BPO sends out, there was no specific episode mentioned, but the description and airtime suggests that the antics were against Yurin, the new martial artist character in Apprentice Under Tien, are the subject. And well, here I'll show up this other screenshot. Well, actually, you can click the link to the article below. There's like they have like a bunch of images that kind of show what the potential problem could have been, and I admit it's not great. And then the article goes on to mention other shows that got complaints. But I kind of want to just talk about this because this was an interesting article to read, because there was that line in there. What was it? These scenes are almost irrelevant to the story. That's the key word there. These scenes are almost irrelevant to the story. Because here's the dilemma. Are the scenes actually pushing something forward? Are they advancing the story? Technically, no. But where the almost irrelevant comes in is that, are these traits consistent with the character? And the answer, for better or worse, is yes. It's kind of like Archie Bunker. Archie Bunker is racist. That is a character trait of his. And it wasn't politically correct back then to be racist. In fact, they didn't think the show would last very long because they had a racist main character. However, it was relatable. So that was why he was a hit. And All in the Family, like a lot of other shows from the old days, is getting newly renewed flack from a politically correct culture that doesn't want to be intolerant on any level. And here's the thing about Archie Bunker. You could disagree with him. You didn't have to agree with his views. But on the other hand, most of the other characters in the show didn't agree with him either, and that was used as a way to show just how stupid racism was. Now, I don't think Toriyama was thinking social issues when he wrote the character of Master Roshi. In fact, he has more or less gone on record to admit that when he drew Dragon Ball when he was younger, he was a little bit more perverted, and he did it more for self-pleasure, because, you're a manga artist, and you're locked away for hours and hours a day drawing manga and just getting it out there. You have virtually no free time. And so sometimes, you know what, hey, you get a little horny and you start drawing these images. And I mean, if you're going to spend hours drawing, you might as well draw something that you want to look at, right? Well, he admitted that ever since he became a father, his views on those things changed a little bit. And so you started seeing less nudity. A lot of the sexual humor was toned down greatly, to the point that when Viz Media released the Dragon Ball big manga collection, they actually scrubbed some of the nudity from the books, even though it didn't change the rating of the book. And in fact, that they had previously published it uncut. But I think Toriyama definitely had some soul searching and just doesn't want to go into that time of his life anymore. However, now that Master Roshi has been reintroduced into Dragon Ball Super, you can't just take away those character traits that were established. For better or worse, this is who he is, and the show has got to show that. And it is, of course, a little frustrating for that to be in a show that you know your kids are going to be watching, but that's more or less what it is. If you don't like those scenes and you think there's too much of it, you don't have to watch that show. I would also argue this is where filtering would be really handy to have, but I've made other videos about that, and I will probably continue to make more videos about that, and so we'll just not worry about it here. Now, whether this complaint is going to actually hold any water or affect the show, it's pretty doubtful. I don't think it would. I really don't. It's just not going to happen. I don't think they even really care that much, to be honest. But it is interesting to see how the times have changed, what the Japanese public is considering inappropriate, which they once didn't seem to really care all that much about. And of course, it brings up the dilemma, like, well, you know, should you be changing characters in the way they were written just because of the new normal standards? I mean, if you're going to reboot the thing, that's one thing. If you're going to reboot it, you can change this aspect of the character because you are doing something different. In fact, you are encouraged to change aspects. However, Dragon Ball Super is not a reboot. It is a sequel. And actually, it's kind of a retcon sequel because this thing is pretty much trying to scrub Dragon Ball GT from history, which Dragon Ball GT, for those who are not aware, was the sequel to Dragon Ball Z, and with the exception of a wonderful opening theme song and a wonderful ending theme song, a couple of wonderful ending theme songs, the show was absolute garbage. Just, you know, it's almost unwatchable. It really is. And Dragon Ball Super is a lot better, and I'm happy we have it. And of course, we can make some cracks about how, of course, these jokes got complaints from the parent and the BPO, whereas scenes of violence and punching one another and, you know, decapitations did not get any complaints. But that's a story for another day. But, you know, this has gone on long enough. So what do you folks think? Do you think the complaint is with merit? Do you think it is valid? Do you think it is insensitive to have Master Roshi continue to be this way? Or do you think, hey, it's his character, for better or worse, we need him to stay Master Roshi? I would love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy the videos I produce or the podcasts I produce, consider becoming a Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1 or buy some swag from the Great Media Universe store. There is a promo code below where you can get 15% off your entire first order. And yes, I sell out-of-print anime there. Every little bit helps to keep me producing content on YouTube. I would like to produce more content on this channel if the support is there. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.